20 most shocking black actor deaths. One died on a runway that should never have been cleared for takeoff. One was found alone in his apartment, the silence noticed by neighbors before anyone else knew. One was beaten to death in a prison cell, swallowed by the very world he once only acted in. And one, the most beloved of them all, kept smiling, kept performing, kept inspiring millions, while his own body shut down in secret. 20 black screen legends, 20 deaths that stopped the world cold. The question is, how many of these names did you actually know before today? Stay until the very end and subscribe to Secret Celebrity Stories, because these are the lives nobody was supposed to forget. Sidney Poitier. Before there was a path, one man cut it through solid rock for everyone behind him. Sidney Poitier entered the world on February 20th, 1927, in Miami, while his Bahamian parents were visiting from Cat Island, and he was raised on that remote island, with no electricity, no plumbing, and no cinema of any kind. He reached New York as a teenager, holding almost nothing, and an accent so heavy that every drama school refused him. So he sat by a radio for months, reshaping his own voice until the words landed clean. That stubbornness became the engine of a historic life. In 1964, he became the first black man to claim the Academy Award for Best Actor, for Lilies of the Field, 6 years after the Defiant Ones had already made him the first black man nominated for a leading role acting Oscar. Then arrived 1967, when Two Sir, with Love, Guess Who's Coming to Dinner, and In the Heat of the Night Together, made him the top box office draw in the entire country. President Obama presented him the Presidential Medal of Freedom in 2009. Queen Elizabeth II granted him an honorary knighthood, and he represented the Bahamas as its ambassador to Japan from 1997 to 2007. On January 6, 2022, inside his Beverly Hills home, Poitier slipped away at 94, of cardiopulmonary failure, with Alzheimer's disease and prostate cancer recorded as underlying conditions. Theaters along Broadway darkened their marquees in his honor. Nearly every black performer alive today carries some debt to this composed, dignified pioneer, and a great many of them owe him the whole of their careers. Chadwick Boseman. Upon the screen he wore a crown. Behind it he was bleeding quietly, and scarcely a soul understood. Chadwick Boseman came into life on November 29, 1976, in Anderson, South Carolina, and chose to study directing at Howard University, a clue that he was always reaching for something larger than a single performance. His ascent astonished everyone watching. He inhabited Jackie Robinson in 42, vanished into James Brown for Get On Up, embodied Thurgood Marshall in Marshall, and then, in 2018, became T'Challa in Black Panther, a picture that gathered more than $1.3 billion and handed countless children their first hero, who mirrored their own faces. Yet none of the cheering crowds glimpsed the truth. Back in 2016, aged only 39, he had received a diagnosis of stage 3 colon cancer, and he confided it to barely anyone. Throughout the shoots for Infinity War, Endgame, Da 5 Bloods, and Ma Rainey's Black Bottom, he was quietly absorbing chemotherapy and repeated surgeries between scenes. Even in his weakest stretches, he slipped into hospitals to sit with children battling cancer, never once admitting he shared their fight. By 2020, the illness had reached its 4th and final stage. On August 28th of that year, with his wife and relatives gathered at his Los Angeles home, he was lost at 43. The post announcing it became the most liked message the platform had ever seen at that moment, and a whole generation realized at once that their king had shouldered a hidden battle from the start and had never let a flicker of it surface. What resembled effortless poise had, all along, been quiet valor. Cicely Tyson. She declared more than once that she never took a part she felt ashamed of, and within a business that had handed black women little beyond servants and caricatures for generations, that lone vow amounted to rebellion. Cicely Tyson arrived on December 19, 1924, in Harlem, born to immigrants from the Caribbean island of Nevis, and raised amid poverty and fervent faith. She muscled her way into spaces that had never expected her. Recognition came through Sounder in 1972, where her portrait of a sharecropper's wife was so quietly shattering that it drew an Academy Award nomination, only the second ever extended to a black woman for Best Actress. The same stretch produced the autobiography of Miss Jane Pittman, in which she carried a formerly enslaved woman across more than a century of screen years, so persuasively that viewers rang their local stations to ask whether Jane Pittman had truly lived. She captured 2 Emmy Awards for that one role on a single night. Over 7 decades, she amassed a Tony, 3 Emmys, and an honorary Oscar in 2018 at 93. She had also been a trailblazing model, among the earliest to wear a natural afro on glossy pages, and was once wed to the jazz giant Miles Davis. In January of 2021, she released her memoir, Just As I Am, granting interviews mere days before the end, lucid and engaged to the last. On January 28, 2021, only 5 days after that book reached readers, Cicely Tyson departed at 96. She had squandered not one of those years, and she left the medium nobler than she had found it. Aaliyah. She had reached only 22 and had already reinvented what a young artist could be. The songs, the films, the unmistakable calm, every piece of it hers, when it all ended in seconds, on an airstrip in the Bahamas one August evening. Aaliyah Dana Houghton was born January 16, 1979, in Brooklyn, and brought up in Detroit by parents who spotted her gift early and arranged their lives around shielding it. At 15, she put out a first album that revealed a voice of silk and smoke, making fiercely difficult phrasing sound as ordinary as drawing breath. Then came One in a Million in 1996, shaped with producers Timbaland and Missy Elliott, a record that rewired popular music, its lean, percussive textures, and her hushed, conversational tone laying down a template that performers have borrowed from ever since. It moved past 8 million copies globally. She turned toward acting in Romeo Must Die, completed Queen of the Damned, and won a role in the Matrix sequels, poised for something rare. On August 25, 2001, after wrapping a music video, she and 8 of her team climbed aboard a small aircraft. Investigators afterward established that the plane was carrying roughly 700 pounds beyond its approved weight, and that the pilot carried traces of cocaine and alcohol and held no certification to fly that class of plane. It went down moments after leaving the ground, and all 9 aboard were killed. She was 22. Her posthumous album opened at number 1, and for 2 decades a generation has replayed that voice, asking a question with no answer. What might she have become with 20 more years? DMX. He barked, opening his tracks, filling his interviews, punctuating his concerts, and somehow it never read as foolish, because Earl Simmons refused to disguise himself as anything but what he truly was. Born December 18, 1970, in Mount Vernon, New York, and reared in Yonkers, his early years were scarred by abandonment, by group homes, by cruelty at home, and by a wound inflicted at 14, when a man he trusted passed him a cigarette secretly laced with crack. That treachery trailed him across the decades. He discovered rap inside that darkness, and clutched it like a rope thrown to a drowning man. His 1998 debut crashed onto the charts at the summit, and within that very year, he became the sole artist ever to drop 2 chart-topping albums in a single 12-month span. His catalog eventually moved beyond 74 million units. His sound occupied terrain few others touched, savage and devout in the same breath, with raw, unguarded prayers laid across nearly every record. A man grappling with his demons aloud, falling, then climbing upright again. He poured that same eruptive force into films such as Belly and Romeo Must Die, but the dependency born from that laced cigarette never wholly let go, and he discussed his relapses with a piercing candor, never insisting the fight was finished. On April 2, 2021, DMX collapsed from a cardiac arrest at his White Plains home, and his 15 children and loved ones assembled as machines kept him breathing. On April 9th, he was pronounced gone at 50. Outside the hospital, admirers lit flames, blasted his music, and barked into the dark, grieving a man who had always, achingly, told the truth about himself. Louis Gossett Jr. The New York Knicks selected him in the 1958 draft, and he turned them down for the stage, a decision that robbed basketball of a prospect and gifted the screen a giant. Lewis Cameron Gossett Jr. arrived May 27, 1936, in the Coney Island corner of Brooklyn, raised by a porter and a nurse. A basketball injury in his school years swung him toward the theater. A teacher urged him to audition, and at 16, he won a Broadway part the New York Times ranked among the 10 finest productions of its season. A talent had emerged, even if the studios needed decades to concede it. His television arrival came with Roots in 1977, the watershed miniseries seen by over 100 million people, where his rendering of the enslaved fiddler earned an Emmy. 5 years on, in An Officer and a Gentleman, his thunderous turn as a drill instructor made him the first black man ever to seize the Academy Award for Best Supporting Actor, only the third black performer to win any acting Oscar at all. The honor ought to have cemented him permanently among the elite. Instead, it didn't. A hard truth he addressed plainly, naming the limits Hollywood preserved even for laureates. He pressed forward regardless, collecting more than 200 credits across 7 decades, from Enemy Mine to Watchmen, to his closing major role in The Color Purple in 2023. On March 29, 2024, Gossett died at a Santa Monica rehabilitation center at 87 from chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, with heart failure among the contributing causes. He had wedged that door wide, held it firm, and labored on until the hours ran out. Michael K. Williams. The mark down his face was genuine, earned in a brawl on his 25th birthday, and rather than conceal it, he carried it plainly until it grew into one of the most familiar sights on American television. Michael Kenneth Williams was born November 22, 1969, in Brooklyn and raised in East Flatbush, where the avenues of the 1980s offered scant, easy routes. His first release valve was dance, and he toured the globe as a professional dancer beside the likes of Madonna and George Michael before a single chance meeting steered him toward acting. He landed Omar Little on The Wire in 2002, largely on the way he occupied a room, the principled stick-up artist who preyed on dealers and whistled through the streets of West Baltimore, becoming one of the most cherished figures the medium has produced. That he never drew an Emmy nomination for the part endures as one of television's plain injustices. He moved on to Chalky White in Boardwalk Empire and to praised work in Lovecraft Country, holding a pending Emmy nod when he died. On September 6, 2021, Williams was discovered inside his Brooklyn apartment, lost at 51. The cause ruled an accidental overdose. For years he had spoken openly about wrestling with addiction and about how punishing it was to climb out from beneath the bruised men he played so honestly. Away from the lens, he threw himself into criminal justice reform, standing as an advocate and turning his own painful history into a fight for the people the system had abandoned. In the end, the very anguish he lent such humanity on screen overtook the man who summoned it. Yaphet Kotto. He once waved away the part of Darth Vader, saying simply that the costume held no appeal for him, and that lone refusal captures almost everything about his lifelong unwillingness to conform to Hollywood's wishes. Yaphet Kotto was born November 15, 1939, in Harlem, to a father of Cameroonian royal lineage and a mother of Panamanian and West Indian descent, and he bore that authentic, layered heritage into every character he touched. He studied from his teens at the Actors Studio, cultivating an imposing frame, 6'2", broad through the shoulders, with a voice of uncommon gravity that made him impossible to ignore. After proving himself on the New York stage during the 1960s, he met audiences worldwide as the antagonist of Live and Let Die in 1973, the first black principal villain in James Bond's history, whom he declined to flatten into a cartoon when a cartoon would have been the simpler choice. He displayed his dramatic depth in Across 110th Street, then steadied the human pulse of one of science fiction's most celebrated crews as the engineer Parker in Alien in 1979. On television, he supplied 6 seasons of textured, commanding work as Lieutenant Al Giardello on Homicide, Life on the Street, and somewhere along the way, even squared off against Arnold Schwarzenegger in The Running Man. On March 15, 2021, Kotto died at his home in the Philippines, where he had settled for years with his wife, at 81. His wife shared the news herself. A colossus of American film, departed in stillness, far removed from a business that had never quite grasped a man of his scale. Andre Braugher. His illness was a secret so closely held that his colleagues of 8 years discovered it the same instant the public did, which is to say, only once he had already left them. Andre Keith Braugher was born July 1, 1962, in Chicago, to a postal worker and a hospital administrator, and trained at Stanford before completing a master's degree at the Juilliard School, one of the great forges of American acting. His career-shaping role surfaced in Homicide, Life on the Street, where his detective Frank Pembleton transformed interrogations into something nearly operatic, drawing an Emmy in 1998 and a lasting spot in any discussion of the finest dramatic work ever captured. Then came the rare Second Life, Captain Raymond Holt on Brooklyn Nine-Nine, an exhibition of flawlessly measured deadpan that revealed his gifts to a fresh generation. 2 Emmys, 2 opposite gears, 1 remarkable craftsman, and the whole arc reached back to glory in 1989, the Civil War drama where, newly out of Juilliard, he stood firm among an acclaimed cast as a soldier locating his nerve. Whatever production he joined, from Primal Fear to City of Angels, grew sharper for his being in it. He kept the diagnosis entirely to himself. On December 11, 2023, Braugher died at his South Orange, New Jersey residence at 61. His publicist disclosed 3 days afterward that lung cancer had taken him, and that it had been detected only months earlier. His Brooklyn Nine-Nine castmates voiced sheer disbelief. That ferocious, complete privacy suited a man who had forever allowed the craft, and never the clamor, to do his speaking. Paul Winfield. A single 1972 film about a Louisiana sharecropping family brought him an Academy Award nomination, and the work he built there opposite Cicely Tyson is still dissected in classrooms as a model of restrained, piercingly honest acting. Paul Edward Winfield was born May 22, 1939, in Los Angeles, in a home that prized education as the firmest escape from poverty. He passed through several universities before devoting himself to acting with that same scholarly seriousness. By 1972, he had secured the role of Nathan Lee Morgan in Sounder, a black father in Depression-era Louisiana hauled off to a labor camp for stealing food to feed his hungry children, a turn that demanded he hold a whole man's dignity, sorrow, and tenderness, and that brought him a Best Actor nomination, merely the 3rd ever earned by a black actor in that field. Science fiction devotees grew fond of him as Captain Terrell in Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan, and he appeared as a police lieutenant in The Terminator, the picture that launched James Cameron, before later turns in films such as Presumed Innocent and Cliffhanger. His television resume ran just as deep, yielding an Emmy for Roots, The Next Generations, and a second in 1995 for guest work on Picket Fences. While his deep, sonorous voice graced countless narrations, he invariably delivered more than any page requested. And on March 7, 2004, Winfield died in Los Angeles of a heart attack at 64, having managed diabetes for years. A performer of unusual refinement, rigor, and intellect, taken much sooner than he should have been, and honored far less often than his gifts deserved. Lance Reddick. They found him at home on the morning of March 17, 2023, the same day a festival was set to screen John Wick, Chapter 4, a film he had been readying to promote. Instead, the world readied itself to grieve. Lance Solomon Reddick was born June 7, 1962, in Baltimore, into a household of educators, and chased music first with the same ferocity he later brought to acting, earning a degree from the Eastman School of Music, ahead of a master's from the Yale School of Drama. That fusion of musical exactness and theatrical discipline lent his performances an almost architectural command of stillness and tempo that distinguished him from nearly everyone in his profession. He assembled his reputation patiently. Lieutenant Cedric Daniels on The Wire, the impassive Philip Broyles on Fringe, the shrewd Irvin Irving on Bosch, each role gripping, each one threading a moral gray zone with great subtlety. In film, the John Wick saga gave him Charon, the unflappable concierge, across all 4 entries. He voiced a beloved commander in the Destiny video games for close to a decade, and even issued a jazz album, proof that his artistry never confined itself to one lane. He was 60. His death certificate named ischemic heart disease as the cause, though honesty requires noting that no autopsy took place, and his family openly contested those findings, his attorney describing him as among the fittest people he had ever known. John Wick, Chapter 4, premiered 11 days after his passing and turned into a tribute. The industry, true to habit, granted him its full regard only once he was beyond receiving it. John Witherspoon. He portrayed Ice Cube's father on film, and beyond the cameras Ice Cube simply named him family. So when he slipped away without warning on a midweek afternoon, the whole comedy world fell still and strained to recall the last time it had laughed so helplessly. The answer was nearly always, whenever John Witherspoon stood in the room. He was born January 27, 1942, in Detroit, one of 11 children in a household that mined laughter from scarcity and comfort from one another. He relocated to Los Angeles and ground through the stand-up circuit for years, mastering the brutal art of what makes a crowd laugh, before the work that defined him finally found him. His exacting, exasperated cadence and his rubbery, expressive face turned him into a thief of scenes, regardless of how brief his appearance. Then the Friday pictures made him eternal as Willie Jones, Ice Cube's beleaguered, riotously funny father, whose distinct flavor of blunt, hard-earned wisdom became some of the most repeated lines in Black American comedy. The exchanges between the two of them snap with a closeness so true they feel less like a script than a lens catching a genuine father and son. He delivered that same impeccably tuned indignation as the grandfather on the Boondocks and as Pops on the Wayans Bros through the 1990s, a hot-tempered, tender figure who felt like everybody's flustered uncle. On October 29, 2019, Witherspoon died abruptly at his Sherman Oaks home at 77, his family confirming the loss. The world has felt a touch quieter and a shade less joyful in all the years since. Roger E. Mosley. Across 8 seasons, he piloted helicopters, tossed off one-liners, and sported his sunglasses with an ease most actors chase across entire careers, so convincingly that audiences forgot a performance was even underway. Roger Earl Mosley was born December 18, 1938, in Los Angeles, and grew up in Watts, a district at once abundant in culture and starved of resources, and he drew both his grit and his wit straight from it. He served in the United States Army before pivoting to acting, assembling his livelihood gradually through stage roles and modest film and television parts across the 1960s and 1970s. He embodied the heavyweight champion Sonny Liston in The Greatest, the Muhammad Ali biopic, with a bodily and emotional richness that surpassed anything the role required. Then, in 1980, he stepped into Theodore T.C. Calvin on Magnum, P.I., the CBS series anchored by Tom Selleck. The program lasted 8 seasons and 162 episodes, reliably perched among America's highest-rated shows. And T.C., the Vietnam veteran and helicopter pilot who operated the Island Hoppers service, became one of the medium's most adored figures, rendered by Mosley with a warmth that made the show's central bond feel utterly authentic. He continued laboring steadily in film and television for 3 more decades, and behind the scenes he directed, taught, and guided younger talents within his community, never drifting far from the craft. On August 7, 2022, Roger E. Mosley died from injuries suffered in a Los Angeles car crash at 83, his family beside him. The original Magnum Ensemble issued a shared statement. TC had lifted off on his final flight. Bill Nunn. Through most of his life, audiences recognized him by a pair of indelible figures: a young man who fell clutching a boombox, and a steady newspaper editor who safeguarded his city through 3 Spider-Man pictures. William Nunn III was born October 20, 1953, in Pittsburgh, the son of a celebrated sports editor who had helped integrate the National Football League by scouting black players from historically black colleges. And that instinct to fight for visibility on a stage built to exclude you was clearly handed down. He studied at Morehouse College before constructing his career through regional theater, eventually drawing the attention of director Spike Lee. In Do the Right Thing in 1989, he played Radio Raheem, the young man who strides through his Brooklyn block with music thundering from his boombox and becomes the conscience of the story. his killing at the hands of police, touching off the anguish that closes the film, in one of the most harrowing passages in all of American cinema. His fear and abrupt fragility in those last instants make it nearly unwatchable without sorrow. Sam Raimi's Spider-Man trilogy then handed him Robbie Robertson, the moral spine of the Daily Bugle, across all 3 installments, and along the route he lent his grounded steadiness to New Jack City, Sister Act, and He Got Game. He had been quietly living with leukemia for several years when his health finally gave way. On September 24, 2016, Bill Nunn died in his native Pittsburgh at 63. Spike Lee saluted him at once. Somewhere, Radio Raheem's boombox plays on, and in memory, it forever will. Meshach Taylor. 5 years he gave to a mannequin sprung to life inside a department store, and 9 more to the most exuberant, most cherished member of an Atlanta design house. And in the gaps he worked ceaselessly, because anyone who recognized real ability refused to let him idle. Meshach Taylor was born April 11, 1947, in Boston, and raised in New Orleans, a city whose music and theatrical pulse soaked into everything he created. He studied at the University of Houston and shaped his early livelihood through regional theater, refining the comic timing and bodily expressiveness that would someday make him familiar in every home. The 1987 film Mannequin handed him his first significant part as Hollywood Montrose, a role that in clumsier hands might have curdled into caricature. Taylor instead made him warm, alive, and impossible to replace, so adored that he returned for the follow-up. Yet it was Designing Women, from 1986 to 1993, that became the cornerstone of his career. As Anthony Bouvier, the delivery man who climbed to full partnership at the firm, he was the warmth and the cleverness anchoring a show brimming with both. His rapport with the cast so effortless, it resembled a glimpse of people who genuinely treasured one another. He logged 159 episodes and never vanished from view for long. He had been quietly enduring colorectal cancer when his condition turned. On June 28, 2014, Meshach Taylor died at his Chatsworth, California home at 67, encircled by his family. Anthony Bouvier coaxed the finest out of everyone he met, and so, by every account, did the kind man who gave him life. Clarence Gilliard Jr. He embodied a villain in Die Hard and a hero in Walker, Texas Ranger, and in each, somehow, he was the most magnetic presence in any frame he occupied. Clarence Gilliard Jr. was born December 24, 1955, in Moses Lake, Washington, into a military family that uprooted often, granting him the adaptability and the keen observational instinct that would later reward him on screen. He studied theater at California State University, Dominguez Hills, building the physical exactness and serene authority that became his hallmark. His early years yielded one of the most memorable supporting performances of the 1980s, Theo, the hacker working for Hans Gruber in Die Hard, whom Gilliard made both amusing and fully convincing with sparse screen time. 2 years prior, he had even taken to the skies in Top Gun as the radar officer Sundown. Then arrived Matlock, where for 7 seasons he played the investigator Conrad McMasters beside Andy Griffith on a series that, at its zenith, gathered 30 million viewers weekly, installing him in millions of American homes for most of a decade. Walker, Texas Ranger, then granted him James Trevette, the faithful partner and moral compass, for 8 further seasons alongside Chuck Norris. And then he pursued something uncommon, an entire second calling as a professor of theater arts at the University of Nevada, Las Vegas, teaching and guiding students until his health faltered. On November 28, 2022, Clarence Gilliard Jr. died at 66. The university announced his death. No cause was made public. He had shielded his illness with the very same hushed dignity he had carried into every role and into every pupil he ever taught. Robin Harris. He stood at the threshold of everything: a film career, a comedy special, a beloved cartoon creation, the kind of fame years in the building, and at last drawing near. And he died on a Sunday morning, before he could witness any of it bloom. Robin Harris was born August 30th, 1953, in Chicago, and grew up in South Central Los Angeles. a place that gave his comedy a coarse, unvarnished candor, unlike anything else on the circuit then. He sharpened himself at the Comedy Act Theater on Crenshaw Boulevard, where he reigned as house MC, and an unrivaled master of seizing a room with nothing but a microphone and his own gravity. His approach lived in the particular, not lofty observations, but actual people, relatives, neighbors, riders on the bus, sketched with such accuracy and affection that crowds knew them on sight. He invented the phrase, "Bebe's kids," to capture a certain breed of unruly children, a routine so legendary that it was turned, after his death, into a 1992 animated feature, carrying his creation to a generation that never caught him live. Spike Lee placed him in Do the Right Thing, and House Party, in 1990, awarded him his biggest role yet as Pop, a strict but loving father whose warmth uncovered real dramatic depth. He lived with a heart condition that was known, but not believed to be urgent. On March 18, 1990, Robin Harris died in his sleep in Las Vegas, where he had been performing at merely 36. House Party still filled theaters. Everything was on the cusp of arriving for him, and then, so softly, it never did. Erica Ashe. She endured treatment while keeping the rest of us laughing, week upon week, and she shouldered the entire ordeal alone with a self-control that was at once admirable and quietly devastating. Erica Chantal Ashe was born September 19, 1977, in Florida, the daughter of a United States Army captain and chaplain and a mathematics teacher, and a military upbringing meant ceaseless relocation. Germany, a procession of states, the sort of life that might have unmoored someone with a frailer sense of self. She turned it into fuel. She earned a pre-medicine degree from Emory University, fully meaning to become a doctor, until a trip to Japan as a model and backup singer redirected her path completely. She came home and built a niche that asked her to thrive at comedy, drama, music, and physical performance simultaneously. Mad TV cemented her as a sketch comedian of true range, capable of impressions that reached past imitation into genuine character. Real Husbands of Hollywood placed her before millions of viewers, and Survivor's Remorse handed her M-Chuck, a keen, emotionally intricate figure that brought her an WAC Image Award nomination. All the while she was privately fighting cancer, a battle her family later linked to breast cancer awareness, confiding in only a small circle while she kept performing. Her final screen role surfaced in a January 2024 episode of Extended Family. On July 28, 2024, Erica Ashe died peacefully in Los Angeles, encircled by those dearest to her, at 46. An entertainment community that had mostly never known of her sickness answered with a flood of love that laid bare just how far her quiet influence had spread. Chance Perdomo. He was traveling to begin shooting the second season of Gen V when the crash occurred. He never made it there. Chance Perdomo was born October 20th, 1996, in Los Angeles, to a mother of Guatemalan and Dominican heritage, and he moved to Southampton, England, as a small child, maturing within a rich cultural duality: American roots, a British temperament, a Latino lineage that handed his work a depth most actors spend years searching for. His training opened at the National Youth Theatre in London. His emergence came through the BBC film Killed by My Debt in 2018, in which he played a real young man driven to despair by debt collectors, a performance so exact and so wrenching that it earned a BAFTA nomination and the title of BAFTA Breakthrough Brit in 2019. At only 22, Netflix's Chilling Adventures of Sabrina then gave him Ambrose Spellman across all 4 seasons, ushering him before a global audience and demonstrating that his reach stretched easily from raw social realism to stylized fantasy. Amazon's Gen V, the praised offshoot of The Boys, cast him as a young man grappling with his powers and his father's shadow to glowing notices, and a second season was already in motion. Near the close of March 2024, while journeying to start that filming, Perdomo was killed in a motorcycle accident involving no one else. He was 27. The full cast released a statement of heartbreak. BAFTA honored him, and production halted. A performer climbing towards something genuinely rare simply ran out of road, and the grief contained in that figure, 27, resists any words. Lloyd Avery II. His tale opens in genuine promise and shuts in a catastrophe so absolute it is almost unbearable to recount. A collision of two worlds that ought never to have met. Lloyd Avery II was born June 21, 1969, in Los Angeles, and raised in Baldwin Hills, a comfortable, middle-class black enclave, sometimes nicknamed the Black Beverly Hills, in a home where performing was welcomed, and where his younger brother acted as well. His opportunity came through John Singleton's Boys 9 the Hood in 1991, among the most consequential American films of its decade, in which he played a gang member whose deeds helped steer the story toward its sorrowful close. The part was brief but searing, charged with a tightly wound danger that made the menace feel entirely real, and he followed it with Singleton's poetic justice beside Janet Jackson and Tupac Shakur. The path appeared to be climbing, but somewhere across those years, the boundary between the figures he portrayed and the life he was leading dissolved. He grew entangled in actual gang activity. His legal troubles mounted, and by the late 1990s, his acting had effectively halted, not for any shortage of talent, but through choices that set him beside real violence rather than the staged kind. In 2001, he was convicted of a double murder and sentenced to life without parole, then sent to one of California's harshest maximum security prisons. On September 4, 2005, Lloyd Avery II was found dead in his cell, killed by his cellmate. He was 36. His is a story of how thoroughly one's surroundings can swallow even real gifts when the supports meant to steady a life are missing. 20 lives and 20 departures that each carried something irreplaceable out of the world. A voice, a presence, a future of work that will never now exist. So here's the conversation worth having. Which of these losses was truly the most shocking? The king who hid his cancer behind a crown? The legend found alone in his apartment? The 22-year-old who never made it off that runway? Or the young talent killed in a prison cell, swallowed by a world he once only acted in? There's no clean answer. Drop yours in the comments. We read every one. And tell us whose story hit you hardest. Subscribe to Secret Celebrity Stories, because these lives were never meant to be forgotten.